To expect tomorrow from the Attorney General, the House Intel Committee ranking member, Republican Devin Nunes. Congressman, we appreciate you being here. I mentioned the former CIA Director, John Brennan, supposed to be in a nonpartisan job when he was there. He has spent practically the last 2 years charging that treason was committed. Where does the president go to get his reputation back?
It's not going to be easy, and I don't think Republicans or any American should be celebrating anything to do with Mueller. Okay, it's fine. He's not going to indict any more people, but there are a whole bunch of indictments that are awful. What happened to these people is terrible. And so what we really need, people are talking about what we need to see. We need to see the origins of this investigation. We don't even know what Robert Mueller was supposed to be looking at. So the irony that the Democrats are now calling for full transparency when for 2 years they blocked their involvement. This was a Clinton, Obama, and a bunch of dirty cops at the FBI that started this in the first place.
All right, let's break that down. What kind of transparency do you want? You've been pushing for a couple of years for the FISA documents, for example, in order to get the surveillance of Carter Page, a Trump campaign advisor. You got some of the materials, but not all of it. You're still waiting for the president to declassify some information. What else do you want to see?
Well, let's just start with, just on Friday, some real news broke. 40 pages of McCabe's phone calls, text messages. McCabe was the former deputy director of the FBI. He's knee-deep in the involvement in this whole setup. Those just came out. Those leaked to Fox News. Okay, we've been asking for those for over a year and a half. So somebody over at DOJ and FBI obstructed our congressional investigation. Let's just start there. Secondly, I mentioned the scope memo. What's a scope memo? This is what Rod Rosenstein wrote the second time, okay, because remember, he started with the Mueller investigation in May. That was a phony beginning to that because he had no underlying crime. And then in August, he wrote a new memo to tell Mueller what to do. None of us in Congress ever saw that. So we can start there. There's a whole bunch of information in the FISA that we can go on and on. It'll take the rest of your show.
Sure. Congressman, I want to jump on something else you said. You leveled a heavy charge. You've done this before, that there were dirty cops, or there was James Comey, Strzok, Page, McCabe. We can name them all. Let's assume for a second that you're right. Why then did some of the president's top officials, like, say, his national security advisor, General Flynn, why did they lie to the FBI? If there was no collusion, why did they lie?
Well, as you know from the report that we did, that the House Republicans did, that is still has not been challenged at all. It's proven to be right when all the other reports were wrong, including many people, almost the entire media apparatus. But our report said that the agents that interviewed Flynn did not think he was lying. As it relates to General Flynn, there is a whole lot there that the public needs to know about that remains classified.
Sure. Okay, so there's still a dispute
Flynn
of that.
was set up.
Yeah, real quick.
Flynn was set up, and people need to understand that, and we need all that information.
Okay, but again, if there's setups, Paul Manafort, what he ended up getting convicted over was bank and fraud charges, not tied to President Trump, not tied to the 2016 campaign. But on the other hand, he was accused of witness tampering, Bob Mueller says. Again, why the efforts to appear at least to obstruct the investigation by others outside the White House when there may be no collusion?
Yeah, well, the easy answer on that had to do with Manafort, his past going back 2 decades. It had nothing to do with Russia. There was never any ounce of evidence of anyone in the Trump orbit at all working with Russians. There was only information of the Clinton campaign working directly with Russians, and that was never investigated by Robert Mueller, which is another reason why I say no one should be celebrating what Mueller's done here. This is an embarrassment to America.
An embarrassment. Quick last question, Congressman. Bill Barr, when he's done with dealing with this Mueller report, do you have confidence that he's going to hold FBI and DOJ officials accountable?
I do, and we are working on a criminal referral. So many of the dirty cops, people will find out who actually we believe those dirty cops are. We will be sending that to the Attorney General Barr, among other names that I think people will be surprised at.
All right, we're looking forward to seeing that. We appreciate you coming in tonight and telling us about it first. Congressman Devin Nunes, thank you.
You know who else's credibility is on the line? The FISA court. Now, the FISA court, many of us civil libertarians have been concerned about it because it hears one-sided information. It trusts the government to tell the truth. Now we know the government didn't tell the truth. The one good thing about this whole thing is you conservatives are now becoming civil libertarians. Thank you for joining me.
That, of course, is Harvard Law Professor Emeritus Alan Dershowitz weighing in this morning on the Mueller Report, the end of the probe, as well as the FISA court's involvement. Joining now to discuss this and much more, Fox News legal analyst, author, of course, of the Russia hoax, Gregg Jarrett. Gregg, good to see you tonight.
Good to be with you.
How do you react to what Professor Dershowitz is saying there? He, as a liberal Democrat who supported Hillary Clinton, says the FISA court was misled.
He's absolutely 100% right. It's a crime to perpetrate a fraud on a court, to conceal vital evidence and deceive the judges. And here they did it in a variety of ways. They had exculpatory evidence they're obligated to tell the judges about. They did not. Under the regulations, they're also required to verify information first before presenting it to the court. They didn't do that. They didn't fully disclose who was paying for it, the Hillary Clinton campaign, the dossier.
And the DNC.
And the DNC. And there are other deceptions. They didn't fully disclose they'd actually fired for lying the author of the dossier. Instead, they said he was a credible source when they knew he wasn't. So those lies constitute, in my judgment, and I write an entire chapter in the book about it, I lay out the various crimes. There are 6 of them, including deprivation of rights under color of law, major fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction, false statements, and perjury.
So President Trump, his party, his administration runs the Justice Department.
That's right.
Why have they not gotten to the bottom?
Because in charge has been the feckless Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein, who's compromised because he signed off on one of those fraudulent FISA warrant applications.
And yet he is still there today,
but
going through the Mueller report with Bill Barr. Are you
right.
confident that Rod Rosenstein is going to do the right thing?
No, I am not confident in anything Rod Rosenstein does, but he will leave soon. His replacement has already been nominated. Confirmation hearings are set. And now you have, of course, a new Attorney General, William Barr. And I do have confidence in him because he vowed during the confirmation hearings that he would investigate these alleged corrupt acts by people at the Department of Justice and the FBI.
I've got a minute left. You talk about the FBI. The former number 2 mentioned a moment ago, Andrew McCabe, was on a book tour recently where he left open, said, you know, it's still possible that maybe the president is an agent of Russia. He actually said that.
That is the perfect...
And James Comey, in an op-ed a couple days ago, basically said, well, who knows, who cares, basically, whether or not there was collusion. How can these guys get away with that?
They shouldn't. They should all be investigated, and evidence that has been gathered and should be still gathered should be presented to a federal grand jury for potential indictment. I mean, the words of Andrew McCabe accusing the president still of being an asset of Russia just underscores what a cesspool of corruption the FBI became, the top levels of the FBI under James Comey and Loretta Lynch, who we now know gave marching orders to Comey not to charge Hillary Clinton. We know that now through the testimony that we received last week from Lisa Page and Peter Strzok.
Gregg Jarrett, author of The Russia Hoax, appreciate you coming in.
My pleasure.
We'll see if there will be accountability. 1 year, 10 months, and about 6 days after the Mueller probe began, America waits for the details. We'll have more on what to expect from the report when it's likely, at least part of it, to be released tomorrow in just a moment.